Like so many girls who grew up in the war years, Lilibet never had any proper coming out. She just started quietly going to parties from time to time with her personal friends. I tried to encourage Lilibet presently to give little cocktail parties of her own in her own sitting room to return the hospitality of her many friends. I could never get her to do this. She was too accustomed to leaving it to Mummy. Mummy had always done all the entertaining and the habit was hard to break. Then one day, Lilibet came to my room and her eyes were very bright. "Crawfie, someone is coming tonight," she said half shyly. Prince Philip was back from abroad. The three of them had dinner together in Lilibet's sitting room and later romped in the corridor. I noticed suddenly that Lilibet began to take more trouble with her appearance, that it seemed to matter more to her than what she wore at the evening party or play, and I found out that Philip had been there. I noticed that suddenly she began to play her gramophone more than usual and that her favourite tune of the moment was "People Will Say We're in Love" from the musical show Oklahoma. They'd been to the show together. Oh, isn't that so romantic? That's so romantic. They've got a song. Philip, I now liked immensely. It was obvious to all of us that he was very much in love. I think had been ever since they met at that last pantomime and they began writing to each other. In those lonely months at sea, he must have thought of her a great deal, and he must have weighed too his big situation. Although there would be great advantages in such a union, especially for him, there would also be great disadvantages. Philip had been educated at Gordonston, where tactful subjugation had not been part of his training, and there must have been moments when he wondered whether he could possibly face it. But he loved her very much. He was a forthright and completely natural young man, given to say what he thought. There was nothing of the polished courtier about him. He came into the palace like a refreshing sea breeze. I often saw him wandering around in his shirt sleeves. Presently he began to come up as a matter of course and have dinner informally in the old comfortable nursery fashion, in the old nursery which Margaret now used as her sitting room. The food was simplest: fish, some sort of sweet, and orangeade, as Philip does not smoke and drinks very little. After dinner there would be hijinks in the corridors. Philip removed from the door the old card with nursery on it and substitute another one marked Maggie's Playroom. They would play ball, a good many electric light bulbs suffered, and race about like a bunch of high-spirited children. It was always a threesome, unless I took a hand and did something about it by removing Margaret on some pretext or another. Margaret was fond of Philip in an entirely sisterly fashion, and he was very good for her. He stood no nonsense. She was then at an adolescent's most tiresome stage, apt at times to be comically regal and over-gracious, and Philip wasn't having any of it. She would dilly-dally outside the lift, keeping everyone waiting, until Philip, losing patience, would give her a jolly good push, which settled the question of precedence quite simply. He sounds good for her, he does. A bit like an older brother. One day, Lilibet came back rather excited from visiting a factory, and I hurried to her room to see what was wrong. "Crawfie, it was horrible," she said. "They shouted at me, 'Where's Philip?'" The heart of a princess is shy and as easily hurt as any other young girl's heart. In time, Royalty grew accustomed and hardened to this prying into their private lives and made little of it, but not at 19, not in love, deeply and passionately, for the very first time. My first thought when I read that line was Diana, Princess Diana, 19. At least, actually, you would think that the Queen would have been very sympathetic to Diana and understood if she'd remembered how she felt. Because, to be fair, the Queen Elizabeth II, then Princess Lilibet, did not have to suffer the paparazzi, the swarms of paps that Diana had, impeding her even walking along the street. She didn't have to suffer that at 19. She just had one person calling out. Diana used to have hordes of them calling out at her. I'm talking about when she was 19. So, it would have been tough. Would have been really tough. It spoiled for them both days that should have been carefree and happy. She began to dread the trips to factories and shops, deeply conscious now of the ever-watchful eye that soon became the over-vocal voice. Older members of the household in touch with the king and queen were quite bothered about it. If there is not to be engagement, the boy ought not to be around so much. There's too much talk and speculation, one of them said to me. Margaret came to my room one day and fiddled around as she always did, picked something up, put something back, looked at it. And so Crawford knew she just wanted to ask her something. "Crawfie, do you like Philip?" "Very much," I said. "But he's not English. Would it make a difference?" "He's lived here all his life," I told her. "He's as English as you and I, really." For a long moment she said nothing at all, and then she said very softly, "Poor Lil, nothing of her own, not even a love affair." All this time, Lilibet led a really remarkably quiet life compared with that of her sister Margaret today. Looking back on it, I'm amazed to recall how very discreet and unspoiled she always was. Lilibet had a large collection of snapshots, and the king and queen never go anywhere without the movie camera. They took films of the babyhood of the princesses and had pictures right up to date. They often were shown after tea at Royal Lodge, and much to our amusement, the king would sometimes reverse the films so that we saw ourselves leaping out of the swimming pool backwards, or the horses or dogs going backwards. One day I saw Lilibet had been busy with her photograph albums, and when I looked to see what she'd been doing, I noticed that she'd stuck for the first time some snapshots of Philip among the family pictures. When it was known that Prince Philip was going to Balmoral that autumn, public excitement and speculation brimmed over. The generally accepted idea was that this was for Prince Philip as a trial trip, a bit like Diana's trial trip to Balmoral. The king and queen were commonly supposed to have invited Philip up to see whether he would be acceptable to them as a son-in-law, and Crawford refutes that and says, "Oh, for goodness sake, they've known him since he was a boy. He's a family friend." He was asked up because he was a young man they all liked, who would make an amusing addition to the party, perhaps also to give Lilibet a good long spell of his company to see how she liked him in large doses. It is good fun to be a princess in a palace, but not always, not all the time. I've often thought how much at Balmoral Lilibet must have envied the Scottish lasses their peaceful courting at evening ends on moor and hillside. Philip's visit dragged on for more than a month. The young people went out with the guns and picnic together, but they were very seldom alone. Occasionally he would take her out for a drive, and now and again they would manage to get off to the gardens after tea. I was on my holidays at the time, but I heard all about it when I got back, and the general opinion was that both Lilibet and Philip had had a rather bad break, and the summer could not have been much fun for them. Most of the household longed to see her happy in her own way with a man of her own choice. By this time, we were all a little bewildered. I think what really amounted to was that neither the king nor the queen could make up their minds who was best for their dear daughter, and so postponed their decision. Lilibet was quiet, her brightness suddenly shadowed. The next move was even more unlikely. An official statement was issued from the palace early in September denying the rumour that there was any engagement between the two young people. On top of this came the announcement that Princess Elizabeth and her sister would accompany the King and Queen on their trip to South Africa early in 1947. Prince Philip, everybody noted, was not to be in the party. It was a very quiet and subdued little princess who went about the task of collecting her frocks for the trip. She would be 21 in the spring of that year, but she looked much younger. It was very clear she was not happy about the South Africa trip. Oh, the poor girl. She would have liked to have had matters fixed and to be properly engaged before she went away. She'd probably be terrified that Philip would find someone else in those months and months and months she was away.